Currency Challenge Google Hangout with Tiffany, the Budgetnista.
My jazz hands.
My name is Zim Ugochukwu. I'm the founder of Travel Noir, and we are going to do a lot of question answering today. So the Currency Challenge sort of came out of this idea that, you know, people are really hindered by their funds. And, you know, people always ask me about how, you know, how they're able to travel, how they're able to save up money. And Sarita, our creative director, knew this wonderful lady, Tiffany, who did a lot of work with financial literacy, et cetera, and thought that we could team up and bring you guys the Currency Challenge. So the Currency Challenge provides 30 days of actionable tips, all curated by Tiffany. And just to let everybody know, there is a Q&A box that's at the bottom of the video. So if you have a question or want to know anything, just select your question, write it out, and we'll get to it in our question and answer portion of the Hangout. So to introduce Tiffany, she is a best-selling author, the best-selling author of The 1 Week Budget. She's a speaker, a passionate teacher of engaging financial empowerment. She's been featured all over the place, namely American Express, Wyndham Worldwide, Princeton, The United Way, Dress for Success. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Also, thank you to everyone who signed up for the Currency Challenge. We have about over 650 people signed up for the challenge, so that's really, really, really exciting. So to get things started, I wanted to kick everything off with a couple of questions for Tiffany. So Tiffany, tell me, you know, money plays such a huge role in the way that we travel and in the way that we experience the world. What are your top 3 tips as it relates to saving for travel?
Well, first, Zim, thank you for having me. I love Travel Noir. Well, first of all, my number 1 tip would be the most obvious one. You have to make travel a priority. So, you know, your rent is a priority, your car note is a priority, literally like making travel a bill. So that's number 1. So once you decide, you look at your budget, maybe it's $50 a month, maybe it's $100 a month, whatever it is that you want to allocate, decide that's what you're going to do every month or every pay period. And then number 2 is really where the magic happens. You're going to find an online-only bank. So a bank that you cannot go in and take your money from. So like Ally Bank is one of these banks. There's like a Barclays. If you go to Bankrate, R-A-T-E, bankrate.com, you can find a free, because I'm the Budgetnista, online-only bank, and you are going to open up a savings account or a money market account. Basically, they're the same thing, and that's where you're going to house your travel fund. So I have this online-only account, and you can actually rename them at these banks, and I call it travel. And I put 5% of my gross income, because I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I do full-time. I put 5% into my travel account, and the beauty of an online-only bank is that you cannot go and get your money. You will have to wait 2 to 5 business days to transfer your money back into your regular checking or savings account. So that means there's no more impulse buying with your travel money. So that's 2, hide your money from yourself. And 3, automate the process. So if it's $25 a check, automate that. It's almost like set it and forget it. So make it a priority, make it a bill, save it at an online-only bank, and automate the process.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome tips. And so tell me, you know, where was your first international trip, and what sort of steps or precautions did you sort of take to make sure your money was on point, that you didn't run out of anything? I know a lot of times as first-time international travelers, we often you know, we're a little bit worried that we might be stranded somewhere and you know, without a card that works, or we run out of cash, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any sort of tips or precautions that you take to make sure that you know, don't run out of money or anything like that?
Well, my first international trip was to Nigeria. I'm Nigerian, like you, Zim. So that kind of didn't count just because, I went with my parents and, they kind of like took care of everything. But my first international trip without my parents was, I'm trying to think, where was it? I believe it was Haiti. I went to Haiti to volunteer. And so that was a little different because, a little bit of money went a long way. Right. So really to prepare for Haiti, it was more so the shots and making sure I knew what the weather was. And really, I mean, you can tell people don't travel a lot when they have these huge bags. And so I learned some important things in Haiti. First, I needed a hard top rollie because like it monsooned like as soon as we left the airport. And if I would have known that, I would spend a little extra money. So sometimes spending money is good. On a good suitcase, if you're going to travel a lot, you need a good suitcase. So you might have to spend a little extra. So that's something that I always look out for. And sometimes you're going, like I just came back from India a few weeks ago, and I found out that in India I could use my debit card. So I was able to call my bank and make sure I was able to use my debit and my credit card. Have those things in place because you don't want to be stuck somewhere and have no money. So that was one. Two. And also you want to call your bank and say, hey, I'm going to be in India. So that way, if you use it, you don't get, it'd be nothing scarier than for you to be somewhere like India or someplace far where you use your card and they think someone stole it, so they freeze your account, and then how are you going to call them if you don't have the, T-Mobile plan,
Right.
So
exactly.
So you always want to have, so the cool thing is a lot of banks will exchange the money for you before you leave at a pretty decent rate. So bring money with you. Don't exchange at the airport. Unless you're desperate, because you're going to get the worst rate. So exchange at the airport, and whatever hotel you're staying in, there's always like the exchange guide that they know that gives you like a really great rate. So don't exchange all of your money. It's really better to exchange in the country and bring big bills, because if you're exchanging a 20, the exchange rate is not going to be as good. They're looking for like hundreds and like 50s. So big bills exchange well overseas.
Perfect. Good advice. So now we're going to sort of hop into some of the questions that our viewers have. So I know that you've taken, extended layovers and, figured out how to make the most of a trip by stopping in one place for 24 hours. So we have a question from Tiffany, and she says, what is the best way to book a planned layover trip? For example, U.S. to the U.K. to Ghana.
So the best way to book a planned layover trip is, usually you end up stopping. So if I go to Nigeria, I stop sometimes in Paris or Germany. And so if I know I'm going to stop there, and depending on how long I want to stay, I want to give myself maybe a day or two. And you want to look for a hotel that's maybe semi-close to the airport, not too far. A hotel that hopefully, like when I was in Madrid, I stayed in a hostel, and I found that the hostel was literally on the train line. And the train in Madrid goes into the airport. So it was like perfect. Yeah. So Madrid was a layover to, I went to Morocco. And so it was awesome. So I did like a little research. So you want to research to make sure that the hotel you're staying at, that you can probably get there via public transportation, because you don't want your layover to be more expensive than your trip. Right. And, look at the hostels. Americans are so afraid of hostels because that stinking movie. Honestly, I've stayed in hostels in San Francisco, in Madrid, in Morocco. Hostels are not bad places. You meet really cool people, and you'll meet your next trip, I promise you. You get really cool with people. They're like, come visit me in Germany. And you're like, okay, next trip. So public transportation nearby, super inexpensive hotel, and decide how long you want to take, a day or two, depending on how interesting you think that country might be.
Got it. Okay. Now, we have another question off. So this one deals with a cruise. Brendetta is asking, how do you come up with an estimated total of what it would cost to go on a cruise? So I guess the overarching question is, so when you're budgeting for a trip, what's your sort of budget process for, from your front door and back?
So a cruise is great because it's like this package that they feed you, they entertain you. So for a cruise, I only would budget for like if I want to do excursions. So usually the cruise will have a list of things you can do beforehand. So you can look to see like, well, what excursions might I be interested in and how much do they cost? And most of the time the excursions are like BS. You could totally, once you land in Mexico or whatever, there's like a local dude sitting right there who's like, I'll take you for 20 versus like the cruise excursion person who's like $150. So it depends on you. See, if you're a foodie, then you want to decide how much do I think I'm going to spend a day on food and allocate that. But if it's a cruise, the food is there, so you don't have to worry. So I usually try to look for places if it's not see, like I said, with a cruise, it's pretty much the package is it, and then you want to bring a few $100s depending on how many excursions you want. But if you're staying at a hotel, I almost always try to find a hotel that at least has free breakfast, because that breakfast becomes my lunch too. So like, I'll make a sandwich at breakfast. I'll bring some fruit with me. At the very least, a snack for the day. So that way I can save my money to do things. I like experience over things. So, you know, that's the best way, is to decide each day what you think you might want to do, price it before you leave, add it up, and bring that money with you and a little bit more.
Got it. Awesome. Now, you know, how much free cash do you think is appropriate for, say, a 2-week vacation in Europe? How do you go about thinking about how much money or cash you travel?
So really, it's just daily, because Europe is pricey, and it kind of sucks because most countries you go to, the dollar goes a long way. Not in Europe. So honestly, my favorite site is TripAdvisor. I love TripAdvisor because you go on TripAdvisor and you can plug in anything that you think you might want to do. Or you just plug in Jamaica or Paris, and it'll list things to do. It'll list restaurants, so you can price what you want to do. You don't have to totally plan out your trip, but at least you can get prices of what you might want to do, so that way you can estimate how much to bring, and then bring a few hundred extra more. Because, like, for example, I almost always, I'm so corny, but I like to do that, like, double-decker red bus tour, like, in every city that I go to, just so I can get, like, a good kind of, like, survey. And I know I'll go online and see how much does that cost. I might even buy it here because I can get a Groupon for it. Right. And so the key is really just, like I said, go to TripAdvisor, find what you want to do, where you might want to eat, and start pricing those things out. So I can't tell, like, if you might go to Italy and you're going to spend more on food, you might go to Switzerland and, you know, you might not spend much at all. So there's no one amount. It just depends on what kind of traveler you are. I'm like a super cheap eater. So I'm like, you know, $30 a day is more than enough. And you might be a fancy, you know, fancy girl. So you might need $100 a day.
Ooh, if you need $100 to eat, I'm gonna pray for you.
My best friend is a fancy girl, and I'm like, really? So I'll eat over here, and you call me when you're done.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we have another question from Andrea, and she says that she often sees tips for the optimal times to book domestic travel, but never anything on international travel. I know you talked about this in one of the emails. So her question is, how far in advance should you book your tickets for international travel, and what are the best days for cheap fares? You actually, these questions were, I think, in the past 2 days with the what's the best time to fly, and then what's the best time to book.
So you're right, they don't give too much information on the best time to book international, but they did some math, and it's about 45 to 50 days in advance. Like sometimes booking way too early, like when I went to India, I remember I got my package for the hotel a year in advance, but the flight was like $1,600 then, and then I waited forever to get my visa, and by the time I got my visa, then I was finally able to get my flight literally 3 days before I had to leave for India, and the flights went from $1,600, which was a year ago, to $970. 3 days before the flight. So, you know, you don't want to book too far in advance. They say about 45 to 50 days in advance. I mean, but then again, like I did it, like I said, a few days in advance. There's no way to really tell. The key is if you know that your flight is coming up in a few months, start looking to see the cycle of how they go up and down. Like, since I go to Nigeria, I know what a good flight looks like, how much that costs. I know what a good flight to California is. Like, if I'm in Jersey, so if I see something under $300 to California, excellent. So you have to educate yourself as to how much, you know, the average flight is going to cost, so that way you can jump on it when you see it. A good deal.
Got it. Now we have a question from our Ask FM actually, and that question is, you know, do you have any advice for somebody who'd like to travel
Mm-hmm.
long term, but they're also dealing with, student loans.
Mm-hmm.
Should they avoid travel altogether until the debt is paid off, or should they, try and find other ways to sort of finagle their way into traveling?
Well, it depends how much student loan debt you have. And I mean, I believe in being financially responsible, but enjoying yourself simultaneously. I don't really believe in this delayed, one day when I'm 60, I'll travel the world. You're not going to have the knees for it. you
Right.
know? So if you have student loan debt, are you paying on it now currently? Um, I would like a lot of college students, they'll save up like a lump sum of money to travel the world. I mean, if you're going to be somewhere for an extended stay, are you going to work? If you're going to work, then you can pay your student loan debt. Computers are everywhere. You can pay online. So I would aim for that. If you want to go somewhere for an extended stay, try to see if you can work so that way you can still pay. I'm not opposed to deferring, but it's not the best idea, you know. But yes, work, pay at the same time, and travel at the same time.
Got it. Now, when it comes to, starting a travel fund or putting money into a travel fund, we each have our own, depending on our priorities, we each put a certain amount into our speculative or, savings travel fund
Mhm.
account. Do you have a certain recommendation for somebody just starting out, or is there like a flat sort of percentage that you should be, putting into your bank account?
Well, if you are an entrepreneur or your money is very like you don't have regular income, then you want to do a percentage. And the percentage is up to you. If I was living at home and my parents were paying all the bills, I might put up to 15, 20%, well, first, you should always be setting aside for your future. Minimum 10%. I don't care if you're five. Minimum 10% of your income needs to go toward retirement. So that's one. So once you do that, and then I believe I give 10% of my gross income away. Because I believe that you reap what you sow and that giving activates abundance. So that's for me. So 10% for retirement, I give 10% away. And then on top of that, I have my other percentages. For me, because I have other responsibilities, I allocate 5% for travel. But because as an entrepreneur, I never know. Like I might have an amazing month and I make $20,000. I might have a month and I make three. So the percentage stays the same. But if you have a regular income, then you should go by the actual number. So if you make $3,000 a month, you might say $50 per check, $100 a month goes for travel. And so that's how you decide for yourself. You have to look at your budget. What's left over after you save for retirement, after you save for an emergency fund, and after you've paid your bills, what's left over? And then you can allocate that and automate that payment so you can set it and forget it.
Right, right. So tell me, what is the most common question that you get as a financial, guru? What is the question that you get the most in terms of finances and travel?
How do you find that cheap? Because whenever I go on vacation, and people are like, "How did you find that cheap rate?" Honestly, I'm like, it's not. I'm not a travel hacker at all. I have usually in mind, like for example, for my birthday, I'm gonna go to Greece and Turkey. And I told myself, I know I'm excited. I told myself, okay, I don't want to spend over $2,000. So I looked, I looked, I looked. Most were like the 3,500 range, and then I found one site, Gate One Travel, which I liked, and it was like 1,800 or something like 15 or 1,600 without the flight, and then 18 to 2,000 with the flight. And I was like, okay, so I kind of put like an earmark for maybe. And then one of my friends used this great site called European Destinations, and she just came back she did a tour of Florence, Paris, and some other European country, and it was $12. I said, shut up. So I went to European Destinations, and I saw my perfect trip. I told myself I care about Istanbul, Santorini, and Athens. That's all I care about. And it was Istanbul, Santorini, and Athens, including flight, including 4 and 5-star hotels, including breakfast at each hotel for $1,250.
Mm.
I gagged. So it wasn't like, it's not like people think I have some magic ball. No, it's just that you have to do the research. You have to keep Googling. And if you know other travelers, ask them questions. What site do you use? Like I had never heard of European destinations. And so I would have paid like $800 more had I not asked the question. So other travelers know. So ask them what sites they use. These things are out there. I'm going $1,200, including flight. Are you kidding me? From Jersey to Greece? I might never come. I might not come back.
Now, do you have any favorite sites that you do use? My personal favorite site for cheap flights is theflightdeal.com.
Yes.
I live by it. I swear by it. It's how I booked my $125 round trip flight to Italy from the East Coast, and many other deals on theflightdeal.com.
Yes. I love that
do you have any sites that you're just like, boom?
Well, I love the flight deal as well, but with the flight deal, you have to be really flexible because it's not the kind of site that you put in and it's not like Kayak where you put it in and it kind of tells you. It's just kind of like, hey, we have it. Do you want it? So I love the flight deal, but I also love, it's called, I don't even know if there's a name. If you put in the words Google Flights, so Google has a flight aggregator where they pull all the flights worldwide. And what I like about it is it gives me a point of reference. You don't book with Google, but they'll just list all the deals for the flights that you want. And what I really love about Google, too, if you just put in Google, I think it's google.com/flights. That what I love about it, too, is that they have like this world map view where you can put in, I want to leave from Newark, and I want to leave on May 30th and come back June 16th. And it'll show you the world on how much a flight will be at these major cities around the world. So I can pick a vacation based on my budget, not necessarily based on the location. And so that's what I was doing the other day. I was telling my boyfriend, we should go somewhere, but we only have this much. And because I have some like credit because I always let people bump me. I'm always like, if you need to bump anyone, I'm willing to sit here. And so I have like $725 worth of flight credit. And so I was looking to see for 2 flights in that amount. So I wanted to see anywhere in the world where that could take us. And so that's what I love about Google Flights. You don't book with them, but it gives you a great idea where you stand. And I just love TripAdvisor, honestly, not for flights, but just for if you're looking for what to do, what to eat, where to go, where to stay. It just has everything. And the ratings are by regular, everyday people who are rating. So they go in, and you're like, ooh, nice. Nope. You know? And so if somebody has a great rating, so you can put great rating, low price, so you can find the perfect little jewel for you to stay in. I saw some place in Greece for $16 a day, and it was like a 5-star rating from like everyone. And I'm like, you can't beat that.
Right. Now, Tiffany, tell me where everybody can find you. Your book is awesome. It's one of the best financial books on Amazon for a reason. She's holding up the one with budget. So tell them, where can they find you?
So they can find me at thebudgetnista.com. If you see my lovely site under my name. I have a blog off that. You can get the book. If you need help with just a basic budget, I give day 1 of the book away for free on my site because I want you to get help now, and it will help you create a basic budget so you can start setting aside money for travel.
Perfect. Well, Tiffany, I want to thank you for joining me on the call, and I want to thank everybody who tuned in to watch. We had a little technical glitch earlier, but the video will be recorded so that if you miss anything in the beginning, you can find it on YouTube. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Stay tuned for really awesome things to come in the future, and have a good night.
Good night. And if you're on social media, come visit me at The Budgetnista on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, The Budgetnista, and ask me all of your financial questions.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone.
Good night.